Welcome to the Beyond Bound Coach and AD Professional Development Series, a weekly online professional development for athletic administrators and coaches. Join us as 6 former ADs now employed by Bound and with over 100 years of combined experience discuss topics important and beneficial to ADs and coaches. Join us on this journey of professional growth. We're here to help you take your coaching and athletic administration to the next level and beyond.
Morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Beyond Bound, our professional development for ADs and coaches. Really looking forward to sharing today again and hearing actually, I'm probably most excited about hearing the thoughts of the team. The more we've done this and anybody who's tuned in every week, the more I look forward to all the different ideas and thoughts kind of culminating at the end. So we'll without further ado, we'll get rolling here. Today's topic, you'll see it here in a second. I was watching Remember the Titans with my boys the other day. They like that movie. We hadn't seen it in a couple of years, and we're in the basement a little bit bored, and hey, let's watch that. And it just reminded me of a topic that I talked about every year in what I called my Norseman Way class with our kids at the school I was at. And that's this idea of a thermometer or thermostat. So, evolving leadership for an enduring influence. And so I think one of the keys that we need to talk about is there are times you need to show leadership in both those areas. Show strategies from thermostat or thermometer, but how do we move ourselves more to the other side? And that's what we're going to kind of talk about today. So first thing we're going to break into is just kind of understanding those styles, the two different styles, how they vary. And then what are the key attributes of a thermostat or thermostat leadership? And then how do we enhance our own leadership styles and this works, folks, for athletes, for employees, it works for ADs, it works across a board. How do we enhance our leadership style to be more like a thermostat? So, yeah, again, bringing back the movie, hopefully everybody's seen it. I'm sure you have. There's a spot in there at the beginning. They're at camp. They're at Gettysburg. Actually, when I was kind of doing this, I went and read some firsthand accounts from some of the athletes that were on that team, and just kind of got dug in a little, went down a rabbit hole essentially. But there's a spot where he says attitude reflects leadership. Jerry and Julius here, and Julius is revealing that he is just a thermometer to Jerry's thermostat. That his bad attitude has infected the entire team, including Julius. And man alive, does that hit me differently now, 20 plus years into coaching and in education. Just how important one person's leadership style can be on an entire team. Everybody could probably tell stories about that for days on end, positive and negative. But this is a great scene, great movie. And it brings me to talk a little bit more about thermometer leadership and just kind of understand the distinction between the two. So, 5 things real quick. A thermometer typically operates in a reactive mode, just like a temperature gauge. It gauges the temperature of the environment and adjusts actions accordingly, and it reflects the conditions around them. Often characterized as not being proactive, and just has a tendency, these types of leaders go with the flow. Whatever's going on the team, we'll take it. It's good or bad. I oftentimes think about when you see smaller schools in particular, smaller schools that have that influx of talented class, and they're really good for like 2 years, and then they're just not good at all. And then you see other small schools, and somehow they're good every year. And I would tell you this probably describes that very, very well. And influenced by external factors such as opinions and peer pressure, what's the prevailing opinion? What's Facebook say today? And then they lack a vision or a direction, and they often can't inspire or guide their teams they lead. Not very well. So that's the first one. Let's get into a thermostat, and I like this. A guy adjusting the temperature in their house. A thermostat is a catalyst for change by influencing and shaping its surroundings. Down in my basement, I have in-ground heating, and my son touched the dial one time when I was not aware, turned it to like 80, which if anybody has in-floor heating, that's a huge, 80 doesn't go away for a long time if you got radiant floor heating. And I was sitting downstairs. I'm like, why is it so hot down here? And he was influencing and shaping my surroundings without me knowing. So they don't just check the temperature of the room, although that's important. They set the tone. They establish standards. They create the climate. They are the ones, and this is, again, the leader at the top, but it's also leaders on the team. They have a strong sense of who they are, vision, values. They know who they are. You guys have heard me talk enough. I'm a huge believer in number 3. If you're going to be a leader at all, number 3 is probably the most important thing to me. Number 4, they instill confidence, they inspire, they motivate. And then lastly, they are not swayed by external features. And I think that goes back to they know who they are. They know who they are. They're not swayed by those things. So let's just break down the 4 key attributes of a thermostat. First thing, they have vision and purpose. Again, what I think is one of the most important things as a leader, do you know who you are? Do you have a clear vision? Do you align your actions with a higher purpose? Okay. They have emotional intelligence. They understand and empathize with their team. Which fosters trust. Okay. And it fosters a work together type of attitude. They're proactive and they're agile. They anticipate challenges. They adapt quickly. And they navigate uncertainty. Look at teams that navigated really well through the COVID era. This is a great example. How are you going to navigate through this very difficult day and age? Then they're accountable and they have integrity. Okay. And to be honest, I put integrity there. Truthfully, a thermostat does not have to have integrity, right? A thermostat can still make changes, affect changes on a leadership group or in a team and be negative. That happens too. But in our world, that's what we want. We want accountability. We want integrity. So they hold themselves accountable and they set high standards for those around them. So real quick, last 3 things. How do we enhance our own style? So if you're an athlete, listen. If you're a coach, listen. If you're an AD, listen. Maybe if you're a school leader or business leader, these all work the same. So first thing we do is we got to reflect and cultivate self-awareness. The first part's easy. Let's think about what we do, what we don't do. But self-awareness is the hardest thing because pride gets in the way. It gets in the way every time. Okay. So you have to be honest. What are your strengths? But what are your weaknesses and where can you have an opportunity to grow? What is it you can get better at? And you're going to be very honest with yourself about that. Second thing there, you then need to define your vision and your values. Know who you are, know who your organization is, and then clarify your vision and your values. Once you've done that, communicate that to everybody. Use those words over and over and over again. Well, one of my core values when I was an AD was we want to take pride. We want to take pride in ourselves, in our school, and in our community. Those 3 things matter to me. So when my girls' softball team asked me why they can't change into their uniform when they got off the bus, I said, because we take pride in who we are, and we're not going to strip down into a sports bra. And I told the baseball guys, same thing. We're not going to do that. We're going to do that before we get on the bus so that when people see us, they see that we take pride in who we are as a team and as a community. And so you communicate that with your stakeholders. You inspire alignment. So I always say find the right seat on the bus, right? Whose role, find their seat on the bus, and to be honest with you, maybe kick a few off that bus if you have to. Okay. And then lastly, empower and develop others. Invest in your team's growth, empower them to take ownership, and provide support for their success. I think the gentleman on this call could define this very easily with the company that we're currently working for, Bound, because this is something we're able to do from our leadership. They invested in our growth and they empower us to take ownership over this this undertaking that we're doing. So that's everything that I have for you today. I want to turn it over to the group here. I think I read off a list, but my images have changed, so now Joey's going to be my first one. So I apologize, Todd. You're now at the bottom of mine. So it's Joey, Aaron, Scott, Mark, and Todd. Let's kind of go in that order and get your thoughts.
Hey, great stuff, Brian. Thank you. You bring up a lot of great points in the thermostat and the thermometer. I think early in our career, I think you mentioned it before we started recording, you wish you'd known a lot of these things 20 years ago. I think we all start out as a thermometer. We are reactive. We're changing based on what's happening around us. We're hot and cold all the time. But the thermostat has to constantly monitor its surroundings and not become part of the surroundings. I think there's a distinct difference there. Even though that thermostat is in that same environment, it monitors the environment and controls the environment rather than the environment controlling it. So how do you do that as an AD or as a coach? I think you just have to communicate with your coaches. You have to communicate with your students, your admin, your public, most of all, your community. And that's the biggest thing, because that will drive the temperature. And that's how you control it as a thermostat. You have to understand what your surroundings need in order to be a thermostat. And I think you've done a great job of outlining how you can do that in the communication, the integrity, and the trust. And you mentioned Bound. One thing that, we get to do this.
Yeah.
We get to sit here and do
awesome.
this. And that's fostering leadership in the people who work for you. And I'm just thankful for that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good stuff.
Thanks, Joey. That's awesome. Aaron Stecker.
Great stuff, Brian, as always, from you. Appreciate it. So as you're going through this, I kind of spun it to the area of mental toughness. I think one of the things when you hear, if you would talk to coaches, what's one thing our teams could build on and be better at would be something to help us take the next step. Mental toughness is oftentimes we just need to be more mentally tough in those moments in a game or a competition or a practice or a season that will make a bigger difference for us if we handle them better. Well, I started thinking about this, and I would encourage coaches and ADs to look out there and look at the leadership of your programs who might be struggling to demonstrate what we would define as mental toughness, performing well and consistently, even when things are tough, even when things aren't going our way, but we still find a way to persevere and compete anyway. And I look at, okay, well, what's the style of leadership going on that? Do you have a bunch of reactive leaders, or do you have a bunch of leaders who are, despite what's going on, are stoic, are steadfast, are motivated by the right things? And there's two areas, and what I've always talked about mental toughness, I felt this hit. One is that area of motivation. Are you internally and intrinsically motivated, or are you externally and extrinsically motivated? And a thermometer is externally and extrinsically motivated. It's the outside surroundings that are determining how I feel, how I act, decisions I make, etc. Where a thermostat is internally. This is the climate we want, because this is who we want to be and what we want to be about, and I'm going to set the tone around me to do that and make sure we're being motivated by who we want to be, not by what everybody else thinks of us. I think so having a program that's led more by a thermostat mentality will increase the motivation of your team, and the stronger your motivation, the more your willingness to persevere through the tough stuff. And then the second part is that emotional stability, that perseverance, that resilience. And again, if you're reacting to everything and letting that determine, how hard you practice, how hard you play, do you accept your role today or not? versus, again, coming down to this is who we are, this is what we're about. We know it's not always going to go our way, but here's how we're going to react and manage that and stay even keeled versus riding that roller coaster of emotion. The thermostat style of leadership, where we're in control of setting that tone, helps you be more resilient, helps you avoid those ebbs and flows, and be more mentally tough, which means you're performing better. So take a hard look at that as a coach, as an AD. If you've got those programs that just don't seem to get over the hump, how do you cultivate more of that thermostat style leadership where it's internally driven by core values and things like that versus, again, what society, how you're perceived from the outside. So good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron. Scott Jarvis, thoughts?
Two things I think hit me with this, Brian. Obviously, every time you bring the house. So two things I think about is just that thermometer detects and kind of reflects those changes in temperature, just like we need to as leaders. I just watched something not too long ago, and they talk about leadership and working with those you lead and vice versa. There's days that we are not 100%, and as a team, we always need to be running at 100%. But there might be a day, Brian or Aaron, like you're like, dude, I am at a 20 today. Or I call Brian or Aaron and I'll be like, hey, I need some help today. And you guys step up and do that. Just like we do in leadership, we need to know where our gauge is as a leader. Where are we at today? How can we then be adaptable and flexible, knowing like I'm not at, I'm at 50% today. I'm going to go to my assistant coaches or my coaches on my staff. I'm like, hey, I am at 50 today. I'm going to need your help probably more than I typically do. And I feel like through this, that just really kind of resonated with me and how important that is in the leadership, just to be aware. And that kind of goes into that second piece I thought about, was just that emotional intelligence. And I talk about this in the book, The DNA of an AD, but how important that is you are aware of your surroundings, aware of those that you are around, that you can put yourself in their shoes. You can gauge the temperature of those around you. We're in the gym and we see a parent up in the stands and we can just see by their body language that they're ready to explode. Do we go up there and have that conversation? I'm like, hey, it's just like, I know these officials are not doing a great job now, but guess what? Our kids will get through this. We're going to be okay. And as an AD, how important it is that we have that ability to be aware of our surroundings, be aware of the temperature, so that we can go make the adjustments at times. So, Brian, that was awesome. I really appreciate this. This was a great one for me today. So thank you.
You bet. Good job, Scott. Mark Gunderson.
Yeah, this is really cool. This is a great concept. And, as you were describing all this, I have this great friend of mine that is the ultimate thermostat. And the key word I think I want to focus on here is integrity. And he's a man of integrity. He's very comfortable with who he is. And so when he walks in a room, he kind of has a presence about him because of his steadiness, just like the thermostat, the steadiness because of his character and his integrity. And he sets the tone for his teams. He's retired now, but the group he works with now at a church, he sets the tone there when he steps in the room because of his integrity. Again, that steadiness, I think, as a leader, the integrity and steadiness of your lifestyle is so important, because then everybody else who walks in that room knows where that thermostat is set for that day, and they trust where that thermostat is set for that day. So I just kind of wanted to highlight him as a person because of his integrity and comfortable with who he is. Very and so cool. Forth. So,
Mark,
thanks.
You bring something to the front of my head here. A few times in my career, I've gone and told people, I feel like I am a better person when you are around me. What a tremendous example. I want to be a better AD. I wanted to be a better dad. I wanted to be a better when I was around. And I wanted to be like that. And that's truly the way that feels, right? Like, I mean, that's kind of what you're describing there.
That is exactly what this person is like.
Yeah.
He raises the level of performance and attitude and character of everyone around him just because he's there.
Yep. That's awesome. Todd Gordon, bring us home, buddy.
The most important person you lead every day is yourself.
Yeah.
Comes back to that reflecting and cultivating that self-awareness. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
We seem to point the finger at everybody throughout the day. We're pointing out where they can be better and what they can do better. And we often don't look back at ourselves. And so that is the most important person, the most important conversation that we have every day. Now, I want to, as one of the older guys in the room, the more seasoned guys in the room, I also want to go back to the history of the thermostat itself. And remember the day when you used to have to get up and go manually change the thermostat with your hand? You had to move the dial. And now you can just sit back and hit an app, and I can warm up. I can hit that thermostat and have it warm up automatically. That's not how life works. You've got to get up and change it yourself. You can't rely on being automatic. You can't rely on the easy way. There is no easy button. You've got to get up, and if you want to make changes, and as you reflect on yourself and you want to lead yourself better so you can lead those around you, get up and change the thermostat. Get off your tail and get active and change it. It's not going to happen on its own.
What if I don't have enough aluminum foil in my house, to put on the rabbit ears kind of thing? If I just can't, no matter how hard I try there, Mr. Gordon.
You just changed appliances. This was not about changing the channel. This was not the remote control. That's a different remote.
I couldn't help myself because all I could picture was you going up and adjusting the tinfoil when you were going back to the old school ways.
I did it.
Yeah.
I did it.
That's awesome.
Brian, thanks. That's great. That's great reflection for everyone. And I go back to Joey's point there too. It was if we could go back, what could you tell an old Todd Gordon? What could you tell an old Joey? We'd tell ourselves to be more of a thermostat earlier on in our career, but you can't do that. But maybe we can help others try to reflect on that too. So thanks for the thoughts today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate. And like I said, my favorite part, honestly, is just discussing these topics. I think whatever topic comes up, and our discussions are on point every time. I love having those. So appreciate all that. I think, if I can leave one final thought, just hearing what Todd said, what Joey said, if I was to go back in time, I would want to tell myself, make sure you know who you are before you walk into that team meeting. Make sure you know who you are. That is why that's why I was gauging the temperature in the room, not changing it, because I didn't know who I was when I was 22. I wish I did. You know what I mean? And so, and that's so important for then our kids too to hear. They need to be the same thing. They need to understand you are not a track athlete, a football player, you are something else. That's your identity is in something else. So make sure you know what that is and who you are. So as always, awesome topics, guys, awesome conversation. And we will see you next week on our next Beyond Bound.